Welcome to the Solid Verbal.
The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrand. Joining me, as always, my man over there in New York City, the one, the only, Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
I'm good. Is it strange to say, because we haven't recorded in like a week and a half?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I miss you. I mean, we talk every day.
I don't think it's
but not in
that
this
weird.
way.
I'd be hurt if you didn't miss me.
Good. We're on the same page, especially because, one, we have a ton of news to talk about. Two, we've got a couple of G5 games from we're recording this Sunday midday to talk about. Three, we have a show that I can't believe we haven't done sooner in terms of theme and Q&A and topic. And I mean, if you've downloaded this, you've seen the title and you know that at least part of this episode is dedicated to, and the name of our Google document is Consumption Junction.
Consumption Junction, yeah. Which would be a great name for like a discount bar.
Yes. So we have, and we tend to focus on FBS teams. So we've got a buffet of like 131. I don't know the number actually right now. After we've got a couple of new entrants, I believe this year. So it's a buffet, Ty.
Yeah.
And we are all just trying to figure out how to strategize and consume effectively. And by that, we mean, how do we watch? What do we watch? Where do we watch? You know, what do we pay to watch? And what do we eat? Where do we go to eat? How do we find things to make to eat?
This idea, Dan, is a wheelhouse subject for both of us.
I'm so excited. Where do we sit?
This is a wheelhouse subject for us here hosting the Solid Verbal, because we've been doing this show. This is going to be our 10th, I guess, full season doing the show. We're starting our 11th season of podcasting, but our 10th full season of doing the podcast. So we've picked up a few pro tips along the way, many of which I'm very excited to share, some of which I don't think I've ever mentioned on the program before. So this gives us an opportunity to not only talk about how we consume football, but read aloud how some of the people that listen to our show also consume college football. So we got that we're going to talk about in a little bit. We've also got some important news that we're going to get through, and also a few housekeeping notes. So first and foremost, there is going to be a pick'em game this year. I am in the process of making that happen, but week 1 will not be available until likely sometime on Wednesday. So I know we've had thousands of people that join our groups every year when we pick these games. Just stand pat. It's going to be out there before you know it. A new and improved game will be coming your way, which you can access via solidverbal.com. So look forward to that. We'll post more certainly out on all of our social media platforms. The second thing, more of a technical housekeeping note for me that I am working on, but we do have a lot of people who listen on Spotify. And for some odd reason, at first, our podcast noted at some point this weekend that it was last updated December 31st, 1969.
Yes.
Which is not at all accurate. And then it just disappeared. It went dark entirely from the service. So we'll figure out what's going on and get that back up and running in time for the year.
Also, yes, the Solid Verbal is title exclusive. Title exclusive. TIDAL.
That's
Sign
right.
up now. $400 a month. Yes, if there's anybody I trust to sort through all of our weird RSS issues that are actually not our faults,
no,
I assume it's Ty Hildenbrand.
We will get this up and running before long, I promise. Daniel, should we get into our news?
Let's talk news.
As you know, we do have some breaking news.
Zach Annexstad has been named the starter at Minnesota. No, that's not what we're going to talk about. So we haven't done a show in a week and a half. You've been, enjoying summer, working, doing all that sort of stuff. I've been working, and I was in Maine for a few days. And a few days ago in Maine, I was in Maine at about, I want to say 9 p.m.-ish Eastern time. There was a press conference in Columbus, Ohio, the gist of which was an announcement that Urban Meyer was going to be suspended for 3 games asterisk can still coach during the week after week 1 for his handling or mishandling of the Zach Smith situation, the receivers coach at Ohio State who was recently let go after a trespassing violation that resulted from, or as a result of, a 2015 court order in which he was accused of things not arrested related to domestic violence and misconduct. And then also the 2009 arrest of Zach Smith that was not at all flagged by Ohio State. And everything was just sort of covered up effectively publicly for a while until recently. And the investigative group at Ohio State found that Urban Meyer did a number of things incorrectly, as well as Gene Smith, the athletic director at Ohio State, incorrectly, both of whom have been suspended-ish.
Ish is a good way to put that. Yeah, thank you.
But retain their jobs at Ohio State, which came as a surprise to many people. It brought out the worst in the worst of Ohio State fans and some really logical and human reactions from the best of Ohio State fans. So what was your reaction, given the new information that came to light from the investigation and the punishment and how thorough the punishment seems to you, or how light that punishment seems to you, or something in between?
Yeah, I mean, my first reaction was we shouldn't paint all Ohio State supporters with a broad brush, because there were some of the worst out there. But also, I thought a lot of folks were just embarrassed about it and quite frankly didn't know how to feel, because it's their team. But at the same time, they're not very comfortable with the way things went down here as part of this investigation. So we have to call that out. Look, the press conference was a disaster.
Yes.
It was a disaster. Definitely. Whoever was the point person on running comms for that operation did a pretty bad job. It was a complete disaster, the way that they went about it. It came across as very shady, totally separate from whatever may or may not have gone on. The press conference did not do Ohio State any favors. So then you had other stuff coming out about text messages maybe being deleted. And I have a long list here of just oddities that I think we found out either at the press conference or after the press conference. None of that stuff plays well for Ohio State. Certainly, Ohio State had grounds to fire him if they wanted to.
It seems that way.
They chose not to.
And they didn't want to.
They didn't want to. Right.
They went into this not wanting to fire him because they weighed his value versus the value of moving on from him and, the goodwill perhaps that would have given them publicly. And they decided, or I don't think it was a decision. I think they went into the investigation saying, how do we do something? And they said as much. Yeah, how do we do something with this investigation to appease everybody? Not how do we go into this investigation to do the right thing, but how do we do this so everybody is satisfied? They
didn't want to get rid of him. They didn't end up getting rid of him. And I think that much came across in the press conference. And it really did represent a lot of what the stereotype is for college football. What's wrong in college football, this whole coach as king mentality. So,
yes,
look, I'm curious to see how this plays long term, just in terms of, how people view Ohio State moving forward. If the backlash that we saw on Wednesday continues throughout the season, a really bad look for Ohio State.
It still feels like the beginning of the end for Urban Meyer at Ohio State, even if he's coaching.
A little bit.
There is a sense that this is going to, and this is college football and high level college sports. So you can't just say without any hesitation that this is going to just linger with Ohio State, because we've seen other situations where people move on. This specific situation paints Urban Meyer terribly.
Sure.
It paints Ohio State terribly. And Andy Staples had a good line in his piece after the fact that when such an obviously smart person is trying to, and I'm paraphrasing here, convince everybody that he's stupid, that's problematic.
Yeah, I mean, selective memory thing, consulting with people to try and delete text messages, didn't knowingly lie. That, all of that stuff definitely has an air of shadiness to it. And so,
Yes.
yeah, if we find out 3 years from now that this was the beginning of the end for Urban Meyer, I don't think it would be a surprise to any of us.
No. And you could get a situation where he says, I think it's best for everybody that I step aside for the good of the universe. One of those, maybe after the year, maybe after next year, something like that, where this is going to, on whatever level, stay with him publicly. It is one of those things where it's very convenient that, one, he had the memory lapse. That's fine. There is medication that can affect memory. That's incredible that it coincides with him not remembering things at Media Day when he spoke to the public. The text message thing, if you didn't see that, there was a report. It's in the investigation, not even a report. It's investigated that he asked a staffer how to delete all old text messages after a year in the wake of the Brett McMurphy story when that broke. And, it doesn't automatically say, ooh, he's trying to hide something. But when it's a university-owned phone that can be, the text can be retrieved via whatever investigative method, the FOIA, whatever, there is something of like, he could in his head say, I understand they're going to come after this. There's nothing that will implicate me about this situation, but there are other situations I'd rather not bring to light. Something like that. It is hard to suspend disbelief that he did not have conversations with his wife about the situation in 2015 and beforehand.
There is a degree of mental gymnastics that needs to take place here to completely believe everything that Ohio State's been selling. And so that's what I have the hardest part dealing with.
Yes.
I'm always skeptical of any internal investigation. And this is a big part of the reason why, because you get stuff like this. The other ironic point that I'll bring up here, and then I'm perfectly fine moving on. Zach Smith wasn't all that great of a wide receivers coach to begin with. It was a personal connection that kept him there.
I would posit he was flat out bad.
Yeah.
He was not professional in his demeanor.
No.
He was not prompt. He was not forthcoming about issues. Everybody looks terrible from this situation. There are facts that, there was Urban Meyer claims that he and his wife met with Courtney Smith in 2009 at Florida. And then she was like, I never met with Urban Meyer. Absolutely not. I never recanted anything. And that they convinced her then not to press charges. Gene Smith, for the second time, has hired a coach without a background check at Iowa State in the 90s with Dan McCarney. He had domestic violence issues that they just didn't know about. They just did not know about. And now at Ohio State, it was, Andy wrote about it, Andy Staples, that $24 gets you a background check on anybody in the state of Florida, and just didn't do it. And Urban Meyer was not forthcoming about Zach Smith when he hired him to Gene Smith. Urban Meyer and Gene Smith were not at all forthcoming with compliance at Ohio State. And so, if nothing else, Urban Meyer is incompetent as a corporate leader, as a leader of men, as somebody who is public facing and represents an enormous school, and he's Ohio State's coach. And there are probably a ton of other coaches who would not do any better, but Urban Meyer's not new to this. No. Urban Meyer knows the game, and this will be whenever he decides to retire. This is what will join him in that retirement. This story and his actions or inaction, and that a college football coach is, pardon my language, full of shit. Nothing new, nothing unique to Ohio State, nothing unique to Urban Meyer. But there is something, and I will only speak for myself here, but I think I have a pretty good understanding from doing this show and covering the sport for a while. It's one of those things where we love the sport because of, in no particular order, the actual football and the stories and the players and the plays and the matchups and the rivalry and the culture of, tailgating and food and traditions and marching bands and traveling and friendships over this. There's no better sport than college football that has a cultural element in America. But when these types of stories come to light, you're like, there's a certain amount of disbelief that you have to have with the sport. There are issues, whether it's monetary, whether it's administrative, whatever the case may be, competitive, that you just have to ignore or get past or make peace with. And this is one of those stories that really, you're trying to kick things under the rug. And this is one of those stories that just sits on your table. And that's what sucks about this, because you want to believe the people that coach your teams or that coach teams that you enjoy watching or run these teams are doing so because they love it and that they want to do right by the people that work with them and under them and for them, whatever. And man, this was a pretty big blow to that. And if he were fired, by the way, fine by me. Totally fine.
Speaking of which, let's go to Maryland. What's going on at Maryland?
So DJ Durkin's been on leave since, I want to say, August 11th, head coach, because of an investigation into Jordan McNair, the offensive lineman who tragically passed away during an early summer workout. And the investigation is ongoing. They got rid of the strength coach, and they're investigating the culture of Maryland, looking into whether or not it has become toxic and awful to athletes, especially football players. And in the wake of all of that, there was a story that former athletic director Kevin Anderson helped to use school funds to hire a lawyer to represent two former football players who were accused of sexual misconduct. And then it turns out it was DJ Durkin himself who steered school funds to the lawyer to represent these two athletes, which is obviously a pretty big conflict. Not to say if you're accused of a crime, you shouldn't hire representation, but when the school is investigating and paying for the defense, it's pretty bad. So that investigation is ongoing. I can't imagine DJ Durkin is coaching another game for Maryland.
You have a list of newly named starting quarterbacks that we should run through very briefly.
Yes. No easy way to transition, but in no particular order. But the last one's going to be my favorite, obviously. Blake Barnett is the starter at USF. Makes sense. Should have the talent to run that. He should be a good option there for Charlie Strong in USF. Shea Patterson, we've talked about ad nauseum. That's the last time we're saying his name on this show today.
Okay.
BYU, Tanner Mangum is back.
Again?
He's going to start. Tanner Mangum, yep. Arthur Sidkowski, the true freshman at Rutgers.
King Arthur, baby. I'm fired up. For
King Arthur.
Yeah.
Really hope he does well for Chris Ash and Scarlet Knights. Wake Forest, Sam Hartman. Well, the Wolford wagon is a tough wagon to follow, Ty. You know this. I know this. True freshman Adrian Martinez from California is the starter at Nebraska.
Do you remember the Pivotal People episode?
A Pivotal People. I think we had
Adrian
Martinez.
This guy right here had Adrian Martinez on that list.
So true freshman, Scott Frost. Of course, Mackenzie Milton was put into action as a true freshman, and Mariota at Oregon as a redshirt freshman. Different circumstances. Zach Annickstad, true freshman walk-on from the IMG Academy, named the starter at Minnesota for PJ Fleck. I don't have a lot of strong thoughts, but Minnesota, within a year and a half, that offense at least, there could be some feist to it, Ty. Pluckiness.
I told you. I told you.
I know. Indiana, Peyton Ramsey, notable because it's not Brandon Dawkins, the grad transfer from Arizona. So Peyton Ramsey back. Kyler Murray officially, which we got like a tweet or something. I don't know if it was Reddit or Twitter or whatever. Like, Ty is literally the only person that I've seen to be so obsessed with the threat of Kyler Murray and injury. I love that because you're a trendsetter, Ty.
Yeah,
and the world will see that soon.
I am.
Peyton Bender at Kansas, not a huge surprise there. Brady White, the grad transfer from Arizona State at Memphis. He is somebody that I would keep an eye on in terms of pivotal people, just because he's had time in that system now because, rejoining offensive coordinator from Arizona State at Memphis. Sam Ehlinger at Texas, not a huge surprise, but it's official. Brandon Wimbush, which became sort of obvious despite, I don't think you are calling for somebody, but you were anticipating it being closer or a more difficult decision than implied publicly. Yes?
No, I knew it was going to be Wimbush, but
okay.
I think my trepidation is more with what happens a quarter into the Michigan game. Mm-hmm. And we know that Brian Kelly, towards the end of last year, had a pretty quick hook with Wimbush, especially in the bowl game. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see how quick that hook ends up being, because if you listen to any of Brian Kelly's press conference, and I'm sure everybody who downloaded this show listened to Brian Kelly's press conference where he addressed this matter. But it's very apparent that the two quarterbacks are drastically different in skill sets. Mm-hmm. It's almost like he's not grading one versus the other. It's more a matter of which skill set will give them the best chance to win. I think this has all the ingredients needed in this fine recipe that I've drafted for my fantasy things about Notre Dame quarterback questions. I think we're going to be there. Though. We are going to be there sooner than later. Mark my words.
By the way, the Fantasy Things draft live from Chicago is up, and even listening back, incredible. I had so much fun. Even if my team gets blown out, we already just saw
so much fun.
Do you have Jimbo Fisher, Texas Things?
I do. My number one overall pick.
Yeah, so you already got points from that. I think he was interviewed by Marty Smith because, of course, he was on horseback.
Got to be on horseback, yeah.
Although, little disappointed. I just saw the picture. I haven't watched the full feature. Why can't Marty Smith wear the helmet with the antenna that they wear after, like, the Triple Crown horse?
Right.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
Oh. And speaking of Texas, TCU named Sean Robinson, last year's backup starting quarterback. So, as expected, nothing crazy. So, I guess the holdouts for big quarterback announcements would be the LA schools. I think JT Daniels kind of expected at USC. I would imagine Wilton Spade at least to start the season at UCLA, but yeah, entirely possible I'm wrong. I haven't seen anything on Wazoo. Tennessee with the Jarrett Guarantano and Keller Christ. I haven't seen anything develop there. Florida State, nothing has been announced publicly. Clemson, we assume Kelly Bryant. I don't think anything will change there, but I don't know if that's lasting the season. Dwayne Haskins has already been named at Ohio State. Any big schools I'm leaving out quarterback battles?
Probably.
I mean, Alabama is obviously a big one.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I think those are the notable ones that we discovered here over the last week and a half or so. As you know, these names can change pretty quickly, depending on performance and injury and a whole variety of other issues. But yeah, as of now, we have a little bit more clarity around who's going to be starting for some of the big teams in college football. To keep everyone here who downloaded and who's listening up to speed with what our plan is, this is our first Sunday show of the new season. The first show, I should say, that we're actually recording on a Sunday. So Dan and I are just kind of getting in the swing of things here. This will be our routine now as we move forward. On Wednesday, we're going to have our week 1 preview episode where we run through all the big notable games and give you our picks against the spread, which you could then take if you want and use to inform your picks in our pick-up pool. And then on Sunday, next Sunday, a week from today, we will do our week 1 review show. Keep in mind that there are games on Sunday night between LSU and Miami, and then again on Labor Day on Monday night between Florida State and Virginia Tech. So we will get to those games when we do our week 2 preview show on Wednesday, the following Wednesday. But for now anyway, and moving forward for the foreseeable future, you can get a brand new show from us, one recorded every Sunday, one recorded on every Wednesday from now through the national championship in the beginning part of January.
And speaking of Sunday shows, and as you mentioned, that is our recap show. That'll be up midday. We're aiming for. We're going to try to record it a little earlier this year. So really, wet people's whistle. Is that the word?
Yep.
I don't know.
WHET.
Whet. But we can sort of start on that quickly because we had 2 FBS matchups last night.
Yes.
Do you have the shootout sound ready?
I do have the shootout sound.
It's been too long. Hawaii 43, Colorado State 34 in Fort Collins. KJ Carter-Samuels in a losing effort.
Dan, I got the board back. I'm ready to use it.
You tweeted out a picture. It got me going.
Yeah.
540 yards and 5 touchdowns. The Washington grad transfer committed to UCLA briefly. So almost UCLA in a losing effort for not nailing down KJ Carter-Samuels as a Bruin. And then on the other side, the actual winning effort, Cole McDonald, who was not at all a big recruit for Hawaii. He has almost 600 yards, I want to say, 550 yards, something like that, of total offense, runs for near 100, throws for about 420, 5 total touchdowns, 200-yard receivers. And when we previewed Hawaii as part of our divisional previews, we didn't say much. They had lost a ton of players, so it was hard to really get a concept for what Hawaii was going to look like, both to graduation, moving on, or transfer. And now that we know that they are at least capable of scoring some points, there aren't a lot of defenses on this schedule that, if everything continues along this path, we don't want to overreact to week 1. They have Wyoming, they have Fresno State, and they have San Diego State. But Hawaii threatening a bowl now suddenly becomes more realistic. It's the quest for 5 at this point.
And you mentioned Wyoming. Wyoming goes on
Yes.
the road and they knock off New Mexico State by a 29-7 margin here, Dan. What's the story for Wyoming? Defense, right?
Yeah, their defense is ridiculous. They were probably one of the best 12 to 15 defenses in the country, schedule and opponent adjusted, or situation adjusted. And I have 2 big points here. 2, defense is great, and they do have some tough offenses coming up. And also, 2, their quarterback completed more than 50% of his passes, which recently at Wyoming, not always a thing. Not always a thing. Wyoming coming up has Wazoo and Missouri, so more challenging offenses probably than New Mexico State. They've got Boise before September is up. They do have Hawaii on the road, which I can't imagine it's a short distance from Wyoming to Hawaii. And, Colorado State should have a nice offense. Fresno State, pretty good. So it's going to be a trying year for this Wyoming defense, but I have a feeling they're up for it. So those are the 2 games of, do you like calling it week 0?
I do.
I don't know who to credit that to. It may be our pal Stephen Godfrey. I don't know who
I like the week 0
came up
thing.
with it.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
I can't fully call it its own week though, because there's not a slate. I have a name that I workshopped in my head that I think is pretty good. You ever go to a restaurant, Ty? I always bring it back to food, obviously. You have your entrees, you have your desserts, above your entrees, maybe your salads, maybe your appetizers. I don't even think this slate is a full appetizer. Do you know what else? You know what's above appetizers sometimes?
What's that?
Sometimes they'll have snacks. And it'll be like deviled eggs, or it'll be like a roasted
So you're thinking
honey,
finger foods
garlic
here.
peanut. It's just something to pick at before your plate of appetizer comes.
Okay.
And they call it snacks. They're like just little bites.
So this is a
I wanna
college football
call-
snack.
I want to call this week Snaction. No? We have Maction. Why not Snaction?
I mean, it's a fair question, but no. I think we could do
Ty,
better.
You're killing me. Thursday night is the appetizer.
I think week 0 is still better than Snaction.
All right. I don't care.
I admire the effort, though, Dan.
Next August, Snaction is going to be my fetch.
You just
How
got to
about that?
steer into it like I did with Duke of Hazard.
I'm going to
Allen
make
Lazard.
Snaction happen, Ty.
Yeah. Good.
I think that's everything in terms of the past,
Yes. Shall we talk about the future?
the present and future. Let's do that.
So here is the deal. You came up with this idea. We introed it at the top of the show, but we've now gotten to the stage of this episode. We're going to talk about college football consumption in a variety of different forms. How do you consume the game? How do you consume food and drink and adult libations before the game or during the game or after the game? Really, we're playing into what is your routine for watching college football. And
Tradition.
yeah, what are your traditions? How do you go about spending your Saturdays or your weekends when college football is in season? Now, as you might imagine, we got a variety of different answers to this broad question of how do you consume college football. So we did get into some interesting territory here. We're going to get into the cord cutting aspect of it all, which is obviously a topic near and dear to my heart. We're going to get into the food aspect of things, which is a topic that you know an awful lot about. But one question that I know we got a lot of is how you and I consume college football. How do we consume enough football? How do we digest enough on a Saturday that we can wake up early and put this show together on a Sunday morning? So
Smoke
Dan,
and mirrors.
I'll start there. What is your routine on a Saturday? How do you make the sausage on your end, so to speak?
So I'm generally up pretty early, 6:30 on Saturdays. I try to get it, unless it's crazy cold, because I'm, again, a soft Californian. I try to get in a run or a visit to the gym just because I know it's a long day ahead. I know it's probably not going to be the healthiest day. So try to get some oxygen into the brain. Game day starts at 9, I want to say. It's 3 hours, right?
Yep.
I will typically watch I'll like half watch game day as I'm on my laptop looking at stories and maybe cooking stuff. Like game day has become less and less a part of my life just because it's long and I have other things to do. So I am watching that less and less, but it's good. It's still obviously the gold standard. So that's what I'll do early on Saturdays. Generally, I have either gone into an office to watch things, or I've had more people over recently, and that's what it'll be this fall. And it's cooking, it's various things, and then it's generally just a couch setup with a couple of screens. Sometimes it's a computer monitor. Sometimes this year, I think it'll be a second TV will be brought into the living room, and we moved, so just down the block, nothing crazy. And there's like a community room that nobody uses that I'll use a ton. I call it my me work.
Your me work,
because there's no we. And there's like a 70-inch TV in there with couches and everything. So maybe I'll go down there, and it's right next to a grill. So to have access to that is new and exciting. So my general plan is to have a couple of TVs and be on Twitter and be looking stuff up and taking notes for the Sunday show as things strike my cerebellum, and watching from noon to, and I will not claim to stay up for inconsequential, in my mind, Pac-12 action that I can watch the next morning, because I still think the best possible Sunday morning show is when we at least have a little bit of rest to sort of reset our brains from Saturday. So I will get up pretty early on Sundays at like 6, but I will watch from 12 to 12, I would say, and then watch the late night stuff that I missed as soon as I wake up before the show via YouTube or DVR or something, because a lot of this stuff is on YouTube pretty quickly thereafter. And usually it's just like, oh, Cal Washington State went till 3 a.m, or Khalil Tate ran for 1 trillion yards against UCLA, something like that, which I can catch up on pretty quickly without having watched it live, because I am a sleep addict. I love sleep. And I will go with that 2 TV setup. I don't think you can pay attention to more than 2 screens effectively.
That was going to be my point. By the way, you mentioned Cal. Can I play my Bauer Hour sound that I've been working on?
Oh my God, do it.
Yeah, we're talking Bauer Hour, baby.
Okay. Has he been officially named starter?
I hope so.
I love that you might have a sound. I think he's going to be.
I'm going to play that sound for Cal regardless of who the starter is. Now, you bring up a good point. I can only put 2 games on at once. Mm-hmm. And not because of any technical limitation, but when you go 3 Dragons, Dan, I can't pay attention to any of the games on TV. It's just like...
And you can watch plays, but then you miss plays.
It's just too much.
You're just out of sync, out of rhythm.
Too much stimulation. So I try to cap it at 2. I'll flip around if need be, just to look and see what's going on, if there are any games that are getting interesting or any cool plays that I need to check out to be informed about what's happening before we do our Sunday show. My pro tip actually is I read a lot more game recaps than I think might meet the eye from doing this show. And particularly, I like to read the losing game recap, because that generally gives me a better sense for what went wrong. And that usually also makes for better conversation between you and I when we're talking through a game. I get a better understanding knowing what went wrong than necessarily knowing what went right. So I enjoy just that aspect of researching and learning about the games through the lens of someone who is presumably much more of an expert on a team than you or I. So that's part of how I kind of bring myself up to speed. But otherwise, I'll get back to what you said about game day. Game day is the gold standard. I love game day, and I would watch more game day if I could. But as I've gotten older,
it's a lot of time,
married, and now in a house, it's a lot of time to dedicate to college football in the morning when you could be doing stuff that you can't get to throughout the course of the week.
You're running errands, going to a hardware store to pick up whatever, soccer practice.
Life stuff, Dan. So honestly, I don't watch a whole lot of college game day, not because I have any stance against it, but because it's 3 hours in the morning before the games get rolling that I could do stuff that I just honestly need to do just to continue on.
It's a pretty good resource for people who are not spending their entire week reading about and thinking about college football and the national scope of things. We've already done that.
Other thing that I'm with you. The other thing that I would throw in there is, and we'll get to this because I saw there was a question about the window of opportunity, but it's not just something that I put on the show because I like to play a really cool sound.
It is a good sound.
The old Windows sound. It's also something that I also abide by.
I will add this as well. it is impossible to watch all meaningful snaps on Saturday
Totally.
and do a show at 9 a.m. on 10 a.m. on Sunday, whatever. And so what we do rely on, as you mentioned, is the recaps and stuff. And there are condensed highlights that become available just so we can get a sense of rhythms and the feel of games. That's something that is just an unfortunate reality with there only being 24 hours in a day. But what is cool is a lot of the conference networks, YouTube channels, in varying degrees of legitimacy, will put up games 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it's just snap to snap. All the filler is gone. And before the following preview episode, we will watch a lot of those to get a better sense of what we're actually talking about, because we can't, if there's a random Auburn game, Kansas State game, Cal game, Minnesota game that all of a sudden is like something huge happens, a quarterback breaks through, like we haven't watched it. So to have that like 12-minute let's watch all the throws Sunday morning before we record is pretty enormous. So
absolutely,
it is, technologically speaking, it has become easier and easier to speak with at least a little bit of authority on what happened.
Absolutely.
So that has become a major thing.
Yeah, and I'll talk more as we go through some of these questions about my routine and how I feel about a Saturday, because we did get a variety of questions. And I'll actually start with a window of opportunity question from Andrew. And he says he's been following college football intently since college, as well as a solid verbal. Thank you, Andrew. Normally, he would sit down around 11:50 and watch on and off until he had a family event or fell asleep. This year, though, I will be busy on Saturday and cannot watch all day. How should I choose my break from other activities? Should I pick a window and enjoy that whole window, or just have the window to follow my team, one of the Big Ten East cannon fodder teams, that will just be on at noon and ignore the marquee games? This is where my window of opportunity, I think, fits in. And I kind of did it half jokingly because I found a sound for it a couple years ago. And it didn't really dawn on me until we did the live show in Atlanta last January, how useful some people out there in the Verballerhood actually found this, which was music to my ears. I'm happy to keep doing it. But
this is your baby.
Yeah, I didn't realize that people took it actually seriously. So what I'm going to do for new listeners, what I try to do is give a heads up every Wednesday about what I call the window of opportunity. And what that amounts to is just on a Saturday when you can get out and do life things. So I'm not talking about that early morning 9 to 12 game day slot. But if you do have to get out and do something in the afternoon, when is your best chance to go out and run that errand or go out and be with your significant other or your family without missing too much college football games? It is not so much about picking what to watch as it is picking what not to watch. You have to triage these games accordingly so that you give yourself the best chance of seeing meaningful action throughout the course of a Saturday. So that's how I approach it. I'm trying to look at the full slate, looking to see how these games line up from a timing perspective, and then give myself the best chance of seeing meaningful action.
I will leapfrog that. I will add to that. One, because he mentioned his team is bad. So a Big East cannon fodder team is what? Rutgers, Maryland, maybe Indiana. I don't know. Your Indiana Hoosiers, excuse me. What I would add is you don't have to watch bad football. Like it might bring you enjoyment to watch one of those teams, but if they are really bad and are just going to get blown out or just soundly beaten most weeks, you can specifically take that time and put it towards doing something productive. Pay attention to the score. If all of a sudden Maryland's up on Michigan or something like that in the third quarter, you can get to a screen normally. You can find streams on your phone or whatever, your tablet, or you can get home if you're cleaning, if you're mowing the lawn, whatever you're doing. If you're taking care of actual life things, you can monitor. But I would say if you are a college football fan, if national college football intrigues you, if you want to watch, LSU, Bama, and they're both in the top 10, you want to watch USC, Oregon, whatever, like just from a purely TV show standpoint intrigues you, identify that Monday, Sunday ahead of it, whatever the case is. And this applies if you have a significant other and everybody's making plans and you've got a cousin's birthday or you have dinner with, in-laws, whatever it is. Life happens and you shouldn't ignore life, but you got to get way out ahead of that.
Yeah,
you have to say, listen, Saturday, this is what is happening in, like, this is what I'm interested in. How can we make this work so all parties are satisfied? And so you can figure out a nice middle ground. That's the most adult thing I've ever said on this show.
The other thing that you can do, Dan, if you're interested in staying abreast of the action, but you can't watch all the games, we're going to say it again, theathletic.com.
Oh my goodness. Are they streaming games?
They're not streaming games, but if you can't watch the games, much to what I said earlier about reading from people who know, doesn't mean you can't be interested if you aren't able to watch the games. Maybe you've got...
it'll heighten your experience when you do watch games.
Maybe you've got this burning desire to learn more about teams, even if you can't watch them. That's where theathletic.com comes into play. Theathletic.com/solidverbal. You can get 40% off your first year's subscription. We've talked ad nauseum about the great college football coverage that they've got out there. It's not just college football, by the way. It's all sports. They had a huge announcement last week about delving into the NFL as well. So if you're a sports fan in general, The Athletic is a good bargain. But certainly if you're a college football fan, the content is rich. The content is deep. We're going to continue talking about it week in and week out here on the podcast because we really do believe that it enhances the viewing, the consumption experience if you are a college football fan. And thankfully, they've been so kind as to extend this offer out to Verballers. So again, it is theathletic.com/solidverbal. Cash in on the deal. Join other Verballers who have already followed suit. And just give yourself the best chance of enjoying the college football season, even if you're not in front of a TV at all waking hours to watch the action.
Yeah, theathletic.com/solidverbal, $2.99 a month. You can find that in a pair of shorts that you didn't clear the pockets of in your dryer right now, $2 and change. And if Adam Silver is not going to break up the Warriors, there is too much writing talent at The Athletic. Adam Silver needs to look into breaking up The Athletic. Too much talent, too clean of an experience. I know you're on the fence if you're listening to this because you've heard of The Athletic and you're like, well, I don't know. No. Trust your pals, Dan and Ty.
That's right.
We've partnered with them. We've gone deep into the athletic experience, and it's just what consuming college football media should be. That's all. Like, I'm not going to try to offer flowery adjectives anymore. It's just what it should be, and that's the coolest thing. Yeah, that's all.
All right. So on that note, you mentioned streaming. Can you explain for me? Can you explain for the Verballers out there what your new situation is as it relates to your streaming setup or just your internet setup? Because you did move, and I don't think your situation is all that different from what some other folks out there might be facing.
So when we moved, we signed up for one of the huge cable companies because my wife wanted to watch some of those channels, which I think we can also just stream using login credentials that we have through Life. I don't know. Right. So it's terrible. It's, the amount of money we pay and for what we actually get from it. It's the internet service is really good, but the actual cable experience is terrible. I don't even think we have a DVR for what we pay. It's just an awful experience. So I'm actually trying to figure this out this week, what the solution is to try to keep the internet speeds and get rid of cable, and how I'm going to do that with manipulating customer service people over the phone. So I have a Roku, which is amazing, which I spend all of my time on anyway. I don't even watch cable. So the Roku has all of your predictable Netflix and Watch ESPN and the ESPN Plus app, which is actually great. In the limited time I've used it and am on it, like my face on there.
Right.
So I am a little bit biased, but it is a really nice experience. I used to have Sling TV at an old place when I cut the cord, and that was fine. I don't think they have a couple of the big channels for college football. I don't think they definitely have Pac-12 Network, which is nice.
No Big Ten and no CBS Sports Network.
Right.
I believe.
So I am in the market, if I can get everything squared with my cable company, which, who knows? I'm in the market to figure out how I want to do this.
Okay.
And my experience with Watch ESPN hasn't been great. The Fox app has actually been pretty good, pretty clean. Watch ESPN has cut out, but I know, and we've got a couple of people mentioning this, ESPN streaming tends to be better on YouTube or Sling or Hulu or whatever because there is an actual stake. They're being paid money to be consistent and of high quality, whereas the Watch ESPN forever was just like, oh, anybody can watch this with the login. But now maybe with the ESPN Plus situation where they're making money from that, maybe that has upped the ability to diagnose issues and provide consistent bandwidth. I don't know.
So
that's what we're figuring out. I'll have one TV hooked up to a Roku and or cable if that's what I have to do, and the other one hooked up probably to like a Mac Mini, and run things through there because I can get everything streaming, or I have a Chromecast somewhere around here, so maybe use that. We'll see. Yeah,
so we've got a list here of 6 of the services. Sling, yes. YouTube TV, Hulu, Live, I think they call it, PlayStation View, DirecTV Now, and Fubo, which I've never heard of before in my life.
You've never heard of Fubo? They had the commercials on it with like a guy in a locker room with a towel.
Never heard of it. But I've done a lot of research on this, and I've been a card-carrying member of the YouTube TV community ever since it came out, which means I'm grandfathered into $35 a month. I'm all about it. I've talked about it countless times on this show. I may or may not have woken up at 5:30 this morning to talk to their customer service folks to see if I could broker a special deal for Arbor Ballers. I'm told they will be getting back to me this week. So
nice. Okay.
I thought maybe I'd throw up my own Hail Mary. But what it amounts to is this, Dan. All right. Price is obviously a pretty big concern, but they're all going to be lower than what you're paying for cable now. Like DirecTV Now, I went through and I tried to configure it in such a manner that I would have all the channels that I need to watch the relevant action. If you don't get DirecTV Now on some kind of deal through AT&T, if they're your cellular provider, it's going to run you about $55 a month.
Okay, which is about like what cable is.
Right. The DVR function is coming around. I think they just added it a couple weeks ago. But that's $55. That's at the high end. Then you've got, I think, PlayStation View, which would run you about $50 to get all the channels you need. Fubo is $45, and then you've got Sling, YouTube, and Hulu all coming in at around $40 a month. The two differentiators, I think, at that low end are how many simultaneous streams do you get, which is important if you're planning on streaming a variety of games. And also, can you use it for other life things? Right? Like, I've got a wife, Dan.
Oh, look at you, Ty.
The solid wife does not necessarily give a damn about whether or not we can watch CBS Sports Network and some of that hot Ken Niumatalolo triple option action.
Congratulations on having somebody fall in love with you and dedicate the rest of their life to you.
Upset of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you start talking about other things like, well, how does a DVR work? And that's where I think YouTube has the advantage, because you get unlimited DVR for something like 9 months. I think they store it on the system. You don't have to worry about what you're DVRing or how often you're DVRing things. Sling tries to charge you extra for it. Hulu, I think, gives you a cap of like 50 odd hours of DVRs. It just seems like the best value is YouTube if it's available in your area.
I was going to say, it is not right now available to anyone who has an internet connection like some of these other services are. So if you just Google YouTube TV markets or something like that, you'll get the long list. They happen to be in your market, and they happen to be in mine. So they will be under consideration these next, 48 hours as I try to figure this out. But here is, I guess, a big thing that a couple of people mentioned in their questions. A lot of people do the double screen or the second screen with their laptop, Twitter, whatever, and they're following along. And somebody, sports writers will be posting like, "Oh my God, ridiculous call," and like it's commercial still on your TV as you're streaming the game. So you will have, and I had this with Sling, you will have a, to me, significant if you're really on Twitter all the time, insignificant if you're not, because how would you know any different? So there is a lag. There is definitely a lag. And there's somewhere between 30 and 40 seconds usually.
I found about 20 to 30.
Okay.
And there is no way around it. I have tried technical solutions for this. There is no way to get around this problem. And so
there is a small workaround depending on the channel. And that workaround is if it's on network TV, and you're going to need this anyway if you're fully cutting the cord, if a game is on ABC or NBC, for a lot of these, I don't know what YouTube's situation is with locals, but not all. I don't think Sling has locals.
No, YouTube has locals. You can get your locals.
YouTube has locals.
Yeah.
But if you are dead set on following a huge game on ABC live on Twitter for like $12, $15 on Amazon or whatever electronics store that you trust online or in person, you can get an over-the-air antenna if you're not like farther than like 100 miles from a city or something.
And they're pretty good. The $50 ones that you can get on Amazon are pretty good.
And they're instant.
For that sort of
so
thing.
you just have to put them sort of near a window, and they're usually coax or HDMI.
Yep.
And you will get perfect HD from the source itself, from your local TV tower.
The new ones are all HDMI. They work really well, which is always an option out there if you're not interested in jumping into one of these streaming services. But as far as the delay goes, I use Twitter less during college football game days now than I used to. And, it's just a trade-off for paying a lot less. Like a lot of people, I was paying like $190 a month for cable. Yeah, for cable and internet, because I didn't have a number of good choices in my area. I couldn't price shop. And now I've brought that down pretty significantly. The other thing that I'll address here, simultaneous streams is something that really comes into play, especially on game day when you're trying to stream multiple games. What that means, though, is you can only stream, let's say, 3 separate streams using YouTube TV at the same time. What it doesn't mean is if you go on to watch ESPN and type in your credentials, if you go on to the Fox Sports Go app and type in your credentials, there's an easy way around it just by going out to those other over-the-top apps, using your YouTube credentials, which will work fine, in order to stream those to a device, and then you can watch as many as you want. If you do it that way, nothing will ever get in your way.
What device do you use? What over-the-top provider platform? Are you Roku, Apple TV, Amazon? What do you use?
I'm Roku.
Yeah, love the Roku.
So anyway, to answer your question, to answer any questions out there, Roku would be my box of choice. And I'm a big YouTube TV guy. I'm going to wait and see if they're willing to play ball with us.
Yeah, the Roku is particularly nice, and we are not being paid a cent from Roku. No. Although, Roku, get at us, because we're ready.
We're down.
The remote is nice. The menus are nice. The user interface is very nice. My remote, I assume yours does as well, has like an input, a headphone input on it. So if somebody's sleeping and you just want to plug in, I don't know if there's Bluetooth availability yet, but mine is also hardwired in, so you get a really nice connection. All of the other apps are really nice, the Netflix stuff. So that would be our recommendation.
Definitely.
But if you are an Apple person and you like your Apple TV talking to all of your other Apple devices, go for it. It seems fine. I don't know.
Here's the other tentacle of this. We got a lot of questions about what do you literally consume on game day, both in the way of food and drink. So we got some comments that came in. One from Brian. He starts a tailgate session with a shot of old granddad. Get a little bourbon in you.
Yeah.
To warm the cockles of your college football heart.
Somebody wants to start a Solid Verbal Brew Club. I like that.
Solid Verbal Brew Club, which I'm all about, by the way.
That's from Russell.
Yeah.
He has some ideas. Okay.
And then there is the food element of things here. David wrote in, suggested some wings that should be made. You are far more passionate about the food side of things than anything else. So can you give me a brief synopsis of how you approach a Saturday in terms of your food?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed through the years. Some years it's more ordering takeout, delivery, whatever, than other years. Some years it's more cooking, depending on the watch location. Sometimes it's potluck, which is always fun. What I would say this year, my big goal is to get things done Friday night when available. So if I want to have meatballs on Saturday, make them Friday night. And just, toss them in a pot, or toss them, if you're making meatball subs or something, toss it in the oven, to do as little work as possible. Even if you're tailgating, get your meat marinated, get your onions and peppers chopped Friday night. You want to be able to enjoy Saturday. So that's my big thing moving forward. I don't have any specific food plans beyond getting stuff done Friday night more often this year. I don't really drink anyway. I'm very boring in that way. But when I do drink, it's going to be near the end of the night because, spoiler alert, if I drink at noon, I am asleep by 1:15.
Yep.
So I need all of the energy I can do. I mean, this is sort of related to consumption. I'm still going to do my coffee nap after the 12 o'clock games end. That like 3:30 to 3:51, coffee nap. Just chug a quick iced coffee, sleep for 20 minutes because that's how long it takes caffeine to jolt your system, and you wake up shot out of a cannon for the next 9 hours. So if you're planning on staying up late, I would consider a coffee nap. Look it up. And yeah, I don't know. The big thing for me this year is also I have a grill, which does not sound like a big deal to probably 98% of people listening. But living in New York, grill access is not great. And we've got one in our apartment complex, our building. So I will be grilling a lot. So marinating the night before, chopping the night before. I'll do some fajitas this year, Ty.
Okay, nice.
I'm going to grill some more vegetables than normal this year. Maybe grill some shrimp one weekend. No real specifics. I'm a big proponent of, we got a couple of people asking about healthier, which, you know what that means, Ty? Joe asked this. What are some good, quick, cheap, and healthy snacks one could make while being stuck on the couch all day? Which this is, if nothing else, points to the fact that our listeners are getting older, Ty. We're growing up.
Yep.
I would say hone in on sweet potatoes. They're healthy, but they're also filling, and they're pretty tasty. I'll chop up a sweet potato into like tiny little wedges, like the size of, like, if you had a toothpick, you could pick one up. And I will just char the hell out of that with some olive oil and some seasoning of your choice. And it's a good side for anything. You know, you're not dealing with a lot of oil or breading or anything like that. So that would be my easy, versatile fix. Even if you're making like veggie tacos with beans and sweet potatoes and onions and peppers, it's filling, which is a big deal.
So the other element of this here is the alcohol.
Yes. Let's talk booze.
We're not the kind of show that's going to advocate going out there and getting blackout drunk. I know that's a thing that happens when you're watching.
But you like your beer. You like your very specific beers.
I do. And the message that we got here from Russell is, I'm one of the millions of red-blooded males who graduated from cheap light beer in the past few years. At the risk of giving them a cheap plug, my usual ball game rotation has become Founders All Day IPA, Stone Go-To IPA, and Wolf Pup Session Ale. Okay. Gang, please give me some other sessionable options. I think we should have a Solid Verbal Brew of the Week to match that week's key matchup. For instance, week 1, LSU versus Miami, the Abita Big Easy IPA from Louisiana, and the Therapy Session IPA from Florida. I don't know about 2 a week, but I think 1 brew per week, the Solid Verbal Brew Club, could be a hell of a time. The prerequisite for that, though, if you want to get in on it, is you got to send me suggestions by Wednesday morning. Otherwise, it's not making it into the podcast. But I think giving folks 1 accessible beer that they can drink per week could be fun to trot out when we do the Wednesday preview show.
This rounds out the Adam Amin voicemail really nicely. He'll give a recommendation for whatever city he's calling a game in, and we have the big brew of the week for whatever the week's big matchup is.
If people want to call in to 408 Verbal 1.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
408 Verbal 1, the reverb line. We'll open it up during the early part of the week. I'll only pick 1. But we'll take some beer suggestions that we can trot out for people who are interested in playing along. Last year, I drank a lot of Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA.
Where's Dogfish? Where's their brewery? Is that
Dogfish
Delaware?
Head's down in Delaware, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's a little stronger. All the beers here that Russell mentioned, Founders and Stone and Wolf, like all of those have a relatively low alcohol content. I don't go pretty hard on a Saturday because I need to watch the games and I need to comprehend exactly what's going on.
Because college football is so important.
So important.
That a little bit of beer, would throw us off.
Call them in. Call them in before Wednesday, 408 Verbal 1. We'll try to work one into week 1.
Here's my only addition to beer talk. Bell's makes a good beer. I think they're in Michigan.
Yep.
I've had Spotted Cow in Wisconsin because I don't know if you can get it outside of Wisconsin. That apparently is a thing. Yes.
Yep.
I don't know. And the local place I like here a lot. There's a brewery called Blue Point, which I think is getting pretty well known. And that's it. Otherwise, I just like cold Mexican beer in a can. You know, if it's Tecate or Modelo, whatever.
Blue
it's
Point
great.
Is very
it's
good.
Cheap.
Yeah.
Blue Point I like. There's like a toasted ale or something like that. It's a little bit buttery tasting to my very not knowledgeable palate. So beer wise, because I think a lot of people are into that kind of thing.
Sure.
I will do, I think we're going to have, do we know our schedule for the newsletter of intent this season?
Yet. Not yet. We're still working on that.
Either way, I will be posting recipes, whether it's Twitter, whether it's in episode descriptions, whether it's newsletter of intent, of things I come across that I've made and like, and they're just suggestions. Take them, don't take them. We'll still be pals. So that is the big thing. Is there anything you are looking to cook that you haven't or haven't done enough of?
I'm going to lean on you for that. And we got a pretty good suggestion here from Chase, a sausage balls recipe.
Okay.
He sends some guacamole over here.
The more handheld, the better.
Yeah, so I'm always on the lookout for new recipes, but I don't have any go-tos other than my old school chicken in the crock pot with some sauce.
Make some salsa with some globes.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know, this is 100% true. I don't know if she said this to you, if it's very true. Our friend Gina Mizell used to cover Oregon State, now covers the Denver Nuggets. She was at our live show in Chicago. And when I was talking to her after the show, she said, do you remember, you probably don't, when Ty pronounced globe as globe because you were in his head to such a crazy degree? And I looked at her and I said, do I remember that? That is one of the 3 best moments of my professional life, Gina. So yes, I remember. In any case, yeah, really go, like, I skew Mexican with my food choices and grilling, but I'm going to try to go a little bit wild this year. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not really good at baking. Maybe I'll try baking a little bit more. So
a couple other odds and ends here that I want to address quickly, because this shows
we got a lot of good messages.
Already running a little bit long here, but we did get a question kind of on this topic of beer. Like, when is it too soon to crack a game, or when is it too soon to crack a beer on game day? I've always reserved the really early morning beer for some sort of get together or tailgate.
Yeah.
Definitely not the kind of thing I'll do alone. That being said, though, I'm a big fan of the mimosa.
That's right. Forgot about that. Okay.
I'd be all about Verballers sending in pictures of mimosas getting ready for game day.
What is your go-to mimosa vehicle? Are you using like a nice little thin glass?
Anything that can hold liquid.
Okay.
It probably works best in a college football context if it's in like a red or blue Solo cup, but
okay.
I'm all about mimosas. I'm all about making those popular this college football season.
I've had a couple of recent cocktails that, like, I had a spiked horchata.
Yeah,
you
that's
ever had
good.
horchata?
That's good.
So spike that with some rum. That was excellent. A lot of, especially as it's going to be warmer the first month of the season, if you skew cocktails, like a pineapple, ginger, icy, refreshing with whatever you like. Tequila, rum, vodka. I think it works across the board. Mule it up. That's what I'm saying. If you want something refreshing. And how's your couch situation this year, Ty? I want to be complete about this.
Yeah. It's the same couch situation as last year, just in a different living room.
Our sectional L, straightforward 3-piece or 2-piece?
Got a 3-piece and a 2-piece, and some fun little ottomans that we got from Target.
Fun little Target ottomans. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we've got a sectional, which gets the job done. We probably need to add a chair, but we still haven't.
And a 60-inch OLED TV.
Okay, here's quickly, because I know you have to run in a few minutes. I have the same TV I've had since 2009. I find it very hard to get rid of. It's either 42 or 46. It's a Sony. It works perfectly.
Sure.
Plenty of HDMI inputs. Works well with the Roku, et cetera, et cetera. You recently bought OLED. Is that what you said?
OLED, yeah.
How is the color? How are the black images? How are the is it, what's it called? HDR?
Sure. I tried initially the Samsung QLED, because I've been a Samsung guy since the beginning of time. But I found that it was so damn bright that when you were watching at night, it would overpower you. So I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be watching some big Notre Dame games at night here. I don't want to be overpowered by the brightness of those helmets, Dan.
Of course.
So we did an about face. We tried the OLED, and the colors are much more vivid and much friendlier on the eyes. What I would say in your case is, since I know you're trying to add...
Well, this thing is a monster. I don't think I have to get something new before we eventually move to the next place, because this is still an LCD it's relatively thin, but it's like 70 pounds, Ty.
Well,
It's
what I would say
ridiculous.
is if you're looking to add displays to your game day setup, go out on Amazon and look for a deal on a TCL TV. They're all Roku TVs.
Okay.
They're reasonably priced. They're good enough for the kind
Well,
of
and a
viewing.
lot of these have like the Samsung panels, right? They have the Samsung boards anyway, or whatever, like a good board, and it's just the framework is a different company.
I'm not sure where TCL comes down, but TCL is a good enough TV. If
Like
you're
a good
looking
budget option.
a good budget option, you can connect pretty much through any of the apps that you might have at your disposal.
I would add, and you don't have much time, if you have a neighbor who you like and has a great backyard
Yeah,
and has a projector, become friends with that
that's
neighbor.
right. Absolutely.
Because that experience, as long as the speaker situation is pretty good out back, that's a hell of an experience. Our pal Andy Wall has that, and she's living that good backyard projector life. So that is because I initially looked at projectors as like a second screen because we have a big white space above our TV, but it's just there's too much natural light in the room. It's not a quality picture, so it really wasn't an option unless it's nighttime, and even then, it's not great. But a good projector in a backyard,
Yeah,
or
that
if you've
can be
got like
cool.
a home theater situation, that's ideal for it. Man,
a couple other little odds and ends here that I did want to address.
Mm-hmm.
Alex wrote in and he said his wife's not a college football fan, but he's a Tennessee fan.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to figure out what is his strategy now for watching the big Tennessee games. Does he try to move heaven and earth to watch the new look Jeremy Pruitt-led Tennessee Volunteers this season, or does he play more of the long game, knowing that Tennessee will probably be better in the future? I would quote the wise prophet Miley Cyrus and say it's all about the climb, Alex.
We love quoting that song. It's not a bad song.
If you one day want to reach the summit of good old Rocky Top, I think you gradually increase your watching of Tennessee football over the next couple of years. So start basic. Start with the Florida game. Start with the Georgia game this year, or whatever.
As for like putting your foot down as an important event.
Set yourself up long term here for what might lie ahead under the Jeremy Pruitt era. I think that's your
I would. Here's what I would say. I would say don't discount. Even if your wife doesn't like college football, there's something about sharing something together, and don't be like condescending explaining it, but like, this is important to me. I'd love to do it with you, and help you to like become a part of this part of my life because we're married. They're married, right?
Yeah.
Is that what? Okay. So just make it invite people over to watch games, throw a party, whatever, if you don't hate watching it with other people, but you're still watching games. So it's more of a social thing than a life or death thing. But I think if you incorporate the other person's likes, dislikes into the situation, you might be able to watch, not that somebody else is in charge of you, but like the experience of watching Tennessee, despite possibly starting Keller Christ at quarterback.
That's right.
Might be a more enhanced social and wedded bliss experience.
We got a question here from Ryan, who goes to Nebraska games. He can't follow the national scene because he's at the Nebraska games. He's asking for tips, to which I would say I have no tips. That's why I don't go to games, because you and I have to record bright and early on a Sunday morning. So I'd help if I could here, Ryan, but I don't think any amount of technology can help you be more in the loop on game day. If you're out there, quite frankly, you're just going to be too distracted.
Life's about sacrifices, and I can't think of anything better as a college football fan than to go and tailgate with friends and share, have 6 opportunities at home a year.
Right.
If that's something, and it should bring you a lot of fun and pleasure, whatever, do it. Don't worry about missing things. There's streaming, there's DVR, and ultimately, yes, you're going to miss a somewhat important Ohio State, Michigan State game sometimes, but you'll find out what happens. And if you like football, you can still watch it through any, DVR or YouTube or any conference network app or whatever, and it'll be fine. I would say lean into the life stuff over the ignoring everybody who wants to hang out with you because you want to watch a game that doesn't involve your team. So lean into the tailgating. Nebraska games are super fun. It's one of my favorite things that I've done on the road. So it's where we met, Ty.
That's right.
And so honor the very real friendship and partnership between Ty Hildenbrandt and myself, and go to Nebraska games and have fun with your people. Don't think twice.
All right. 2 final questions here very quickly. Walker writes in that his brother's getting married in Portland on the Saturday of week 1. Basically, how can he keep himself up to date with what's going on? He says because it's his brother, he doesn't think he's going to be able to stream it on the phone. Nor should he try. It's your brother. Different if you're a guest, but if you are presumably in the wedding,
we would assume.
I think you will find others at the wedding who are interested in college football, and you could maybe use them as a proxy to keep yourself up to date with what's going on. But I don't know if I'd advise the streaming.
I would savor every second. If everybody likes each other generally at this wedding, if you like your brother, if you like your brother's soon-to-be spouse, I would say just live it up. It's week 1. It's barely going to matter in 2 weeks. And catch up on DVR or on streaming stuff afterwards. Live it up. Enjoy the night. It'll be fine.
Final question here, Dan, which is tangentially related, but someone wants to know if they can get another New York City live show. What are our plans for live shows over the next couple months?
If you've been to Yakko's, we're doing a Yakko's take, like a Yakko's tour, I would say. We're just going to hit every Yakko's. They don't know it's happening.
Nope.
And we're just going to start yelling over the PA if they have a PA. We're looking into doing some live shows during the season. Obviously, it's more complicated than just saying we would like to in some bigger college towns where we know we have listeners who would be interested. This specific question was about, a New York show?
Yep.
We would like to do something in New York around probably the playoff, maybe even the national championship game, to do something different. I don't know. Maybe we'll go to San Francisco. Maybe we won't. Nothing has been in stone there. But we'd like to extend it to like not just doing a live show, but like a live show and a watch party. Maybe it's just a random game. Maybe it's just like come out to this LSU Ole Miss game at this bar in New York, and there's drink specials and food specials, and we'll do a quick little intro and then hang out and watch the game and like do really dumb commentary and take questions during the game. Something like that is interesting to us. So that's what we're tossing around right now. But I would say within this season, there's a very good chance because it's very convenient to do another New York City show.
I would second that. All right.
Yeah.
Folks, we will be back on Wednesday to preview week 1.
I loved this show, Ty. I loved it. That's just a quick debrief from me.
Week 1 coming at you. solidverbal@gmail.com. Write in. Let us know what's on your mind. We will have information out to you in very short order about the Pick'em pool. We will also hopefully get our Spotify issue rectified. I'm working on that as we speak. Don't forget, if you do have a brew suggestion, in light of the show, 408-VERBAL-1. That's 408-837-2251. Give a call to the Reverb line and let us know your suggestion for the coming week. Maybe I'll play that message aloud on the air. And otherwise, Dan, I look forward to talking to you on Wednesday. Going to preview a big week of college football action. Opening weekend, always a ton of fun. So we've got, I think, 6 or 7 really big games that I spiked out that we're going to start going through here and get this thing underway.
Oh my God, Ty, I am so damn excited. Also, I will be appearing on the Action Network show, I'll Take That Bet. That's on ESPN Plus. Check it out. That'll be on Wednesday with our pal Jeff Schwartz. Also, there will be a video and a column of picks and all sorts of fun on Action Network. So if you're not yet following Action Network or on actionnetwork.com, please do so. All sorts of cool resources. And by Wednesday, I should have another announcement about things I'll be doing this fall that I'm very excited about.
On the edge of my seat. All right. Well, for that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you all on Wednesday. The season's coming. Woo! Stay safe.
Peace.